welcome to another episode of the Trauma Translator Live. I'm your host, Lauren Friedman, also known as Not Another Asshole. And today I'm really excited to welcome Tim Fullerton to the pod. He is someone that I admire his work and what he is trying to bring to this world and help everyone. So without further ado, let's bring on Tim.
Hey there, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about, before we dive in, and I know we have a lot to talk about, and we were talking a little bit before we aired, but I was really excited because when I first found your profile and saw all of the amazing things you were working on, one of the things that was most interesting to me as an OG, I feel like I'm an early adopter of social media. I was on Facebook since October of 2004. I watched the rise and fall of Facebook society, right? So I saw one of the things that you posted was your first brand campaign was on MySpace. Can you tell me about that? Because that to me was like mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of by accident. I had taken a job at an organization called Oxfam America, and it was right after the Southeast Asian earthquake in 2004/2005. And they had gotten all these new supporters, and so they, they hired me to be the email guy, and to sort of figure out how to use those folks both for advocacy and fundraising. And then while I was doing that, we sort of like everybody was using MySpace at the time, and so I was like, well, why can't we use this as well? And so we, I think we built the first social account for a global brand. No one's been able to prove me wrong. I'm happy to be wrong if someone can prove it. But yeah, so we used it, and it actually led to a partnership with MySpace, which was something called Rock for Darfur, which was a bunch of artists basically donating their profits from one show on a certain day. And like Oxfam got the table and like get to sign up their audience and things like that. So it was really one of the first online to offline activities that now we see on a daily basis.
Wow, that's that's like early days of social media. That's why I was so excited to chat with you today, because you've been innovating for over 2 decades. So tell us a little bit about how that's impacting what you're doing now, and a little bit about your mission currently and how
So I've always been interested in using digital tools to get people to do something for good, whether it's donating, taking an action, that sort of stuff. And so like I've always been interested in using these tools and always trying to try new and different ways to engage with people. And so that experience over the past 21 years has helped to shape how we are building Find Out Media as a media company right now in the digital space. So, it's very helpful to have all of those experiences and knowing what works and what doesn't to help make more educated guesses on what will work moving forward. So it's been a very, very helpful to me, and it's really foundational to everything I do now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, your trajectory is something that not a lot of people can share, right? Like, I thought I had a prolific and volatile career, but you've had a prolific career. Tell us a little bit about how you got here and what your inspiration is for Find Out Media. And just before you do that, one of my questions is, and I'm sure this isn't the answer, but is it fuck around and find out?
Yes, that is essentially how we came up with that, and we essentially effed around in November of 24, and now all of us are finding out the consequences of doing that. And so that is why we named the show and the company what we did, because we want to be very clear that we're educating people on the disaster that we are seeing in this administration and how it's hurting millions of people, and also then showing people a better path. But I mean, I think from your first question about the experience, it's very much from, I worked in progressive nonprofits and political campaigns, so I have a baseline of understanding of what motivates people, the types of approaches like short form versus long form, or a mixture of both. How to write catchy headlines and how to get people's attention in 3 seconds, which is all very, very important in a digital age. So in a sense, some of these tools are also almost hearkening back to some of the early days, as far as like we have our own social media app called Find Out Social, which doesn't have an algorithm in it, and you can post things without being suppressed. And so there's some of those things are starting to come back. So it's useful to be able to go back a couple years and remember what was working then to apply it to these new tools that are coming out today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. By the way, the reason I went into advertising was because I thought I was going to be a copywriter. I always did all the slogans for all the bar and bat mitzvahs growing up, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But I ended up going into technology first, and that's what ended up driving the world, right? And
Right.
I used my copywriting skills to just win new business in a highly competitive ecosystem. So when you think about the 3 seconds, right, like that attention span is real. When I was at Oracle, we were looking at it at attention metrics, and at the time when I was interviewing, there was a whole talk track on for 7 seconds. It is not 7 seconds.
No.
It's 3 seconds. So, and where do you see these days? Because I think a lot of people could really be really could find this valuable, especially creators. And like, you should offer classes, honestly, when you think about short form, long form, because when you think about, like, one of the things I've been doing is I've been playing around with the algorithm on Instagram specifically, and like posting more than once a day. Like we talked about flooding the zone before, but posting more than once a day isn't always a good thing for distribution. So when you're thinking about that from what you're doing, right, you already have a platform. How would you advise people to use that understanding right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that has been true from the first day of start doing this to today is finding your unique angle on a particular story or a particular area or interest area, and really giving people something of value. You know, you are asking people to stop scrolling, which people are hours and hours of scrolling. So how do you get somebody to just go like that? You have to be very creative, and you have to give people a reason. They're not going to just watch you because you made it. So you have to come up with something. And like, I think for Find Out, it is very much a unique angle on, the political topics of today, with a mix of people who have done the political thing, like myself and some of my co-hosts who have had regular jobs before and not had that same experience. And so we have a very unique perspective. And also, frankly, not a lot of white guys like me talk about progressive issues. And so we know part of the whole game is also showing people that there are other people who look and sound like them on this side. And that works for politics, or it works for B2B or B2C businesses as well. You have to give people a reason to watch.
I couldn't agree more. We were literally just talking about that exact topic. I also have a very unique POV. My background's also very unique, and I agree with that. And when I talk to people too, they're like, it's not like a blonde white girl that says what I'm talking about, right? Because normally people like you and I don't care about those issues unless we're incentivized to do so, right? If there's something in it for us. So I think that is really a unique platform and a unique positioning for what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're focused on Find Out?
So really, we're trying to do a couple things. One, build a community and let people know that there are like-minded folks like them all across the country. We get notes from people in very deep red areas like Oklahoma and Nebraska, and they say, I thought I was all alone. And I think it's very isolating for folks to be in these areas. And so we gave them a community and a sense of purpose and an understanding that they're not alone. In fact, more of the country agrees with them than doesn't. It just happens to be where they live. It's not that reality. So making people feel like their voice is being heard, and giving them a place where they can talk to like-minded people is an incredibly powerful thing. And if you can pull it off, again, whether it's politics or it's a business like a brand, that is the thing everybody strives for, is people who are totally bought in and essentially are waiting for you to activate them in one way or another.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the most powerful thing, is to feel seen and feel heard and feel like they have a community. Like, I feel isolated here in New York, like, forget about it. I traveled all over the country for business. And I actually like Nebraska, right? I don't want to live there, but I think it's it's like a little city, like Omaha is somewhere that I never imagined I would like, right? And when you think about making mass generalizations about our population and our country and how we got here, it's really beautiful that that's what you're doing, because my original goal for this too was to create community and a safe space for people, because people don't feel safe and they don't feel like they could speak their truth. Like the fact that I even posted that caption for this program this week was a risk, right? Like, I had people unfollow me after that. People don't want to hear your politics. People were like, oh, be quiet, put your head in the sand. But guess what? That's how World War II happened. That's how the Holocaust happened. We have to live in the reality of what's actually happening, right? We can't just keep our heads in the sand.
Well, the notion that the politics doesn't have anything to do with business is just false.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, everything has been politicized in this country at this point. And I agree. I have people sometimes tell me, LinkedIn's not a place for this. And I'm like, actually, it is.
Yeah.
Because if you think about like the effects of the economy from this Trump administration, it's been entirely negative. You gave tax cuts to billionaires and nobody else. You put tariffs on everything, which raised prices for the guy who said he was going to lower prices on day one. And now we're in a war that we don't really know why we're in it, and we're stuck. So that all affects business. And whether it's gas prices, diesel prices in particular are close to $6. Well, most trucks in this long haul trucks in this country run on diesel.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, $6 instead of $4 a gallon, we are going to pay that. So
those downstream effects are real.
The downstream effects are real, and it affects everybody. And that's why we have to talk about these things on all platforms. And obviously LinkedIn is more talking about business, but like there is a space for this, and it's important to understand the pressures on business that an administration that said that they were pro-business, which in fact all they've done is drive up prices for everybody and throw a lot of people out of the country that were doing jobs that frankly no Americans wanted to do. And now the fruits and vegetables are more expensive. It's harder for restaurants to find workers. So that is a conversation for LinkedIn, and we should be having that. Now, if people tell you that, that means it probably tells you who they voted for, and they don't want to have the conversation. So like there's a little bit of a tell there for sure.
I mean, that's not even my problem. My problem is I agree with you. And like, also, by the way, I've applied at every restaurant possible. People laugh me out of there. I'm like, I'll wash dishes. If they're having trouble, send them my way. I'll do whatever is possible. I need to make some money. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the thing is too, is that what they're doing actually is like you hired a businessman who played with the tax codes and literally made all of his businesses fail, right? Purposely, right? For the tax codes. And that's what they're doing now with the country. They're literally running it like a tech company. I lost my job 6 times after M&A and divestiture. And then I'm told it's my fault and I can't get a job.
Right.
What do I do? You know what I mean? Like, how do I live? And that's literally this is what they voted. Oh, you want a businessman? This is what you got.
Right. And I think that the biggest misnomer is that we want the country to be run like a business, because we don't.
No.
And honestly, we've had two business executives as president, both of which have seen massive job losses and a downturn in the economy. This trickle down economics that they all push for doesn't work. Yeah. And also, if you're giving billionaires who already have more money they can spend more money, they're not putting it back into the economy. They're putting it in their pocket. And then they're putting it into investments in which they only have to pay 15% on returns instead of the income. So it is important for us to talk about these things here, because these all affect the bottom line. And, like if you don't want to hear it, well, then I'm sorry, then you are in the wrong country, because everything we do affects the world. So yes, it is all political in nature, and it has an effect globally. And so if you don't like it, either vote for somebody else or move, because that is the nature. Like, I'm not going to stop talking about this stuff on LinkedIn because it's important. And it's not just to win elections. It's to show people that these things don't work. And if you run a country like a business, which means you're thinking about profits and all that, so which the government doesn't need to do, it's not the right thing. And we're seeing across the tech sector right now, as you're pointing out, all these companies laying off tens of thousands of workers and blaming it on AI, which I'm sorry is bullshit.
It's been going on for decades. I've been losing my job since September of 2011. So let's be honest.
I mean, sure, some, but not all. And they're using it as cover. And, that is, again, another thing that we need to be talking about. Or the fact that they're spending this money on these data centers that no local communities have any say in whatsoever, even though these things take up a tremendous amount of energy, which are going to drive energy prices up higher, and also raise the temperature of the communities around them because they run so hot. Like, these are conversations that should be here. And so we need to have those conversations. This is not a place to just post, chat GPT nonsense and try to score some points. This should be a place where we talk about all elements of business. And I'm sorry, but government involvement in a democracy is going to be something that we talk about here.
Yeah. And by the way, when you're thinking about the tax cuts and all those things, those are multinational, like they have presence everywhere in the world. So they're not paying taxes across the globe. So it's not just here, right? It's actually like, we need to think about it at a global scale. We had globalization, and also all of those in those communities, when they're building out all of those data centers, they're also doing the opposite of, let's say the tariffs were supposed to get jobs here. Those jobs don't exist, right? So if we wanted to get manufacturing back here, which nobody wants to do, they're like high-end lofts these days, right? Like even in Omaha, there's literally like former factories that are now beautiful high-end lofts right in Omaha. Like I passed it by. I had a tour of it. And so like those are the places that like, okay, cool. So the tariffs came, people are like, oh, we'll bring jobs back to America, but they don't exist. So like we need to think logically here and not like a business, because we don't need this country run like a business. I agree with you. And people, when people, I speak to a lot of people, and I'm not as careful as I used to be, because I'm not trying to make us friends. Like this is how we ruin the world. We have to speak our truth, right? And not live in shame and not feel that we're going to be attacked afterwards. But when we speak to people, they're like, well, the government doesn't help. It's both sides of the aisle. And I was like, I don't know about you, but I know that in 2008, the government did affected change. And I know that because I worked at the New York Times, and it was the print digital shift. It was the financial crisis. It was everything was going on, and our economy got better. People were thriving. The same people that voted in this administration were the same people that were thriving during the Obama administration.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly right. I mean, we almost went into a depression in 2008, and we had just passed one of the largest tax cuts in history. We turned surpluses into deficits in the Bush years, and then those tax cuts were supposed to generate hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs. All the deregulation made speculation on homes and things like that riskier, and then some of them failed, and then it was basically like a cascading effect. And then the government had to come in and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to pump money into the system, because the only way to grow is to pump money. It doesn't work the other way. We've tried it dozens of times. And so, and that was not to be run as a business. Like if we were going to run as a business, we would have let the auto industry die.
Exactly.
And instead, Obama and others saved it. And now it's still there. And also many of those loans that they got, they paid back with interest. So these things, like sometimes, yes, you do invest a lot of money, and we have to be careful about that. But, this like running it as a business thing, like generally you would let those things die. But then if you let that die, the Midwest dies. And then what happens then? And so, I am strongly a firm believer of government intervention when necessary, not overly, but like when they need it. And, and I think that, also holding people accountable for some of these decisions is also hugely important as well.
Yeah, I mean, even when we think about what's going on right now, my most recent job was at Oracle. Larry Ellison's trying to ruin the world. Like they bought TikTok, right? So when you think about what's going on TikTok, and then his son, what's going on with Colbert, like last week, that's a big deal. We can't have this going on in this country. We're pretty soon going to live in a different country, and it's just not good. I had someone that I met 2 weeks ago who was here from Belgium, and he was talking about how he went shopping, and I was like, why would you go shopping when you were here? And he's like, the dollar is less than the euro. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, I forgot about that, because I haven't traveled because I've been trying to bootstrap a startup, but like in a few years, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really scary to think about. Like people here are not thinking that,
No, and I think that one of the realities that people missed in 24 is that we frankly came out of COVID the best of any developed country. Yeah. And yes, we did have high inflation. There's no doubt about it. But that's because all of a sudden there was a surge on demand. It wasn't anything that the government did. And then, prices went up because things had been deflated for so much, because people weren't traveling, people weren't leaving their homes, they weren't doing anything. And then all of a sudden there's this surge. So, there was an article, actually it was a cover in The Economist, I think it's September of 2024, that said the U.S. economy was the envy of the world.
It was, though, 100%. I read that article too.
Not even 2 years ago. Do you think that anybody says that now? And the answer is no. And there were no situations that we couldn't avoid. All of our mess is self-inflicted with tariffs and wars and this tax cut that really didn't help anybody but billionaires, and cutting Medicaid and Medicare, and kicking people off of food assistance. And it's just, we did it to ourselves. And now inflation is starting to go back up because we made things more expensive deliberately.
100%. But the other part of that is that people, like I had people that voted for the other candidate, or for Biden in 2020, and then they're like, I was doing better under the previous administration. I was like, the stock market isn't the economy. It's one component of the economy. It's not the whole economy. So when you think about, we need to educate people about what is the economy, how can we affect change, right? And how is it personal to them, right? Because what is going to help them? Because no one cares about other people. They really just don't. That's just the reality.
Yeah. And it's, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. We could have a series on this.
But I think that, this is something we've thought about at Find Out Media, is actually developing a financial show that isn't about the Dow being at 50,000, because what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
About, and where, looking at the jobs numbers and seeing where there's growth. And frankly, some of this data center development is masking weakness of the economy because they're spending so much money on these things right now. But private sector jobs have not been growing at any sort of pace that can keep up with what you would need to continue to so it's really frustrating. But that's part of the reason why we have started building what we're building, is to push back on those narratives and say, no, the Dow being at 50,000 doesn't have anything to do with a guy with him and his wife have two middle class jobs and two kids. They don't care that that's at 50,000. It doesn't affect them at all. But tariffs that have cost the average American $1,700 or more, that hits the bottom line, and we need to be talking about that stuff more.
And gas prices. Let's forget about tariffs. $1,700 doesn't even sound that much, right? But when you think about gas prices, something that affects every single person every single day, even tomatoes. I live in New Jersey. Tomatoes were so bad last summer because of all of the things going on that I couldn't even eat tomatoes. So let's think about what's going on at a grassroots level, right? Which has been your whole premise of your existence, and then and then expanding upon that. Because that's where people understand it. And you're right. I think the Dow thing, people don't get unless they have money in it. And most people in this country don't. The reality is that they just don't. And we can't be looking at who has money in these markets when we need to worry about who has healthcare, who has food on the table.
Right.
We have the ability to even let people have jobs. Like you were saying, those job growth numbers, first of all, are not even real. None of the numbers that are coming out of this administration are real. They're all mess. Everything isn't real. So when we think about a baseline for truth, what is the truth, And I think that Find Out Media is really where it's at. Now, are you going to be collaborating with the Midas Touch people and all those YouTubers?
Yeah, I mean, we very much say that our mantra is impact first, revenue second. So we're in this to win and to work with anybody who is interested in furthering the goals that we have, which is to win and make sure that more Democrats win and that we stop this nightmare that we're in right now. Yeah. And so, we are definitely open to working with anyone and everyone, because I think it's going to take more than Midas or Crooked or us to affect some real positive change. We're going to need a lot more people involved. We need our side to be investing in this stuff just like the right has done for decades. 100%. And I think people are starting to wake up to it, but there is a lot of work to do. So yeah, we are 100% open to working with anybody who has the same goals that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because it's not about right or left or middle. It's literally about how do we affect change in this country to help the people of our country, because our country, for better or worse, is the leader of the free world. And when we're not doing well, the rest of the world isn't doing well. And now also, by the way, now all those other countries have built up their militia. They built up their military. We had kept everyone in line. So everything we've done has literally derailed all the progress in the last 40 years, the past 70 years, and it's really scary, honestly. Both my parents are dead. My mom was first generation escaping the Holocaust. Her mom literally came here and within 5 years had her and then beat the out of her. And so I come from a lot of generational epigenetic trauma, and it's lived in my body. And this is why I've had this crazy life that I'm trying to share, that help other people regulate their nervous system and speak their truth and not live in shame and find ways to get through these hard times. Because what you're talking about is literally life, right? You could say, oh yeah, everyone's doing great on LinkedIn and they're all going, my industry decided, 10 years ago plus, that they were going to go to Cannes every year. And I'm like, great, go to Cannes while you're laying off thousands of people. And now they want AI to take over our jobs and over the world. And I'm like, we need to put some guardrails in place. We need to protect the country, because otherwise we're not going to have a country.
Yeah, I mean, I think strong oversight of AI is absolutely critical. And I think that even the industry has sort of asked for some of this and said, help us do this because we don't know. I mean, there have been some models that I think Anthropic, it was one that came out a few weeks ago, that their models, they actually scaled it back because it was too powerful, and it was frankly a threat to national security.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah,
because it was able to exploit weaknesses on websites and other secure areas. And so, we're only, I mean, I know they've been working on it for over a decade, but like released to the public,
yeah.
really only talking about 3 years or so. And so and we're already at that stage. And so
I was selling AI and machine learning for over a decade. Like
right.
this isn't new.
No,
this has been going on since the 70s.
The chat components are new.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Like we've been working on this forever. And, there needs to be regulation and oversight of this stuff because it can spiral out of control. And like I said, the industry and experts have been yelling about this for years now. And, the Trump administration's perspective has just been like, hands off, let them do whatever they want. And like that is a very dangerous road to go down. And we need serious regulations and reforms and putting up guardrails so that, it's not doing dangerous things or anything, like making sure that, it doesn't hallucinate and make up shit, which it does.
It does, yeah.
It does.
I've played around with I played around DeepSeek, ChatGPT, all the different components. It's not a substitute for anything.
Right. And the models are told you can't respond with I don't know. It makes you give an answer. So, there are things that need to be done to regulate that. And I hope that, with the very likely switch of power in the House and maybe even in the Senate, there can be some, negotiations with Trump about putting some real guardrails around here. And then when we have a Democratic president in 28, really getting serious about this reform, because you're right. Otherwise it's a wild, wild west, and it can, it can do a lot of good things, but it can also do a lot of bad and damaging things as well.
There is a gentleman on the Daily Show a few weeks ago. He's a reporter for The Atlantic, and he wrote a book called AI for Good. And it was like literally showing what we could do with AI that can do good for society, right? And that's something we need, right? We could use it for good, but we can't, it's literally a Pandora's box. So when you think about all of the other things that are happening in our society and then layering that on top of it, let's try to figure out how to get our society to a better place before we just try to ruin it again. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing after another. I feel like it's a pandemic after pandemic. And to your point too about the jobs, like I've been losing my job since 2011, and in 2023, Google first started laying people off. And when Google started laying people off, and then I lost my job about 6 months later, I was like, this is not good. None of the things that are going to happen after this are good, because when Google has layoffs, that's not, and Amazon, that's really bad. And like, we need to look at what's going on in our country. And also, why are these companies incentivized to lay people off? Right? Like it's trickle down, but it's the opposite of what the trickle down effect is supposed to do. Or maybe it is what it's supposed to do. I don't know.
Well, it's certainly what they publicly say they want it to do. I mean, I think we have tried it over and over again, and it doesn't work. You don't, like, again, if you give somebody like Elon Musk, who is getting closer and closer to being the first trillionaire in the world, a tax cut for what? Why does he need that? He doesn't need that. In fact, he's also getting billions of dollars in U.S. government contracts with SpaceX, which is helping to float some of his other companies that aren't making money, like Twitter, for example, and to a lesser extent, Tesla. But, there's no societal benefit to giving someone with that much money more money. The societal benefit would be to tax that person at a higher rate and take that money that they will never miss in their lives, and put it towards healthcare, education, climate, which is a real massive problem that we're ignoring right now.
That's a major problem too with the data centers. It's not just increasing the heat, the temperature there, but and they also had a deregulation of the climate. So like, what's going on? They got rid of the Weather Channel or the Weather Service, right?
They severely cut NOAA. It's still there, but at a far less. I mean, that they do research, on a whole host of things, and they've got it all of that. Obviously they've got it a lot at the Health and Human Services too.
I know.
Flowing, finding treatments and cures for diseases and that sort of stuff, and also saying that autism is entirely because of Tylenol use, which is nonsense.
Ridiculous.
And
neurodivergence is actually an epigenetic thing that is actually from dysregulation. Like that's one of the things. Like when I was having a severe undiagnosed PTSD and I was interviewing at the biggest companies in the world and I still secured a job, I was having light sensitivity, sound sensitivity.
Yeah.
I'm not autistic, but guess what? We're all a little autistic. We're all a little neurodivergent.
Well, it's a spectrum for a reason, right? And it's
yeah.
And I think the sad part about what they're doing is that, like, the government could be doing a lot of good by researching treatments and those sorts of things. The cure is a misnomer for something like that. Anyways, it's not a disease, but you can, there's huge opportunities in doing research and learning so that you could take folks that maybe are not able to work right now, but if you had the right therapies and education, you all of a sudden move them off of needing government support to having jobs, meaningful, jobs.
But and that's the jobs too. Where are the jobs?
And that's what we should be talking about.
Yeah,
instead of saying Tylenol, which, by the way, that's a brand name anyways.
Yeah.
Acetaminophen is what they talk about, but there's zero evidence for that either. So like there's a lot of opportunities in getting people in jobs that could be very beneficial and reduce the amount that the government has to spend on its citizens. And 100%. We don't talk about that. And that's another thing where it's like, these are conversations that should be had on LinkedIn because these are business.
Yeah. Let's also talk about the white collar. Like, forget about like government assistance. Like I said before the show, my dad grew up in the projects in East New York on welfare. He took himself out of the project into upper middle class America. Like but let's also talk about the white collar crimes because there's a lot of like, even in my own ex-family, like I see it. I see what's going on and it's not okay. So like when we think about waste, government waste, it's not where we think it is. The swamp isn't there. The swamp is other places, right? So we need to think about that. I'm also really concerned about like even the voting. Like people, they're talking about someone, I don't know where I was today, it was maybe on Threads, and they're like, hey, from Minnesota, sending you love to New Jersey. And I was like, I don't even know what that is about, but I'm scared. I don't know. I have to do some due diligence on that. I don't know.
No idea. I mean, maybe the ICE detention facility stuff that happened this weekend, where they maced Senator Andy Kim and some other folks, and just this awful stuff. But yes, I think that white collar crime is as big of a problem as crime on this violent crime, which is dropping in this country. But like white collar crime and the amount of grift that is going on in this administration. I mean, Donald Trump's sons are running a drone company of which they're trying to get government contracts, and like it's just preposterous. Or they want to create this website where you can sell guns online without having to do a background check in public or something like, or at a dealer, and his sons are working on that too. It's just like the rampant corruption and the white collar criminal activity. Like, and I think one of the reasons that Democrats didn't do as well in the last decade is that after all of the Occupy stuff and the financial crisis, nobody was punished.
Yeah.
And that was a huge problem. And Democrats need to get serious about holding white collar criminals accountable because they are destroying lives.
Yeah.
Just as much as a violent criminal does as well.
It's actually worse because it's hidden, it's secret. Right. No one's getting killed in plain sight. But the thing is that in the previous administration, his son shouldn't even be involved. You can't just bring your kids to work. Right? Why are they going to China? Like why is his son-in-law trying to negotiate with Iran? Like, we need to think like, what is happening in this country and how do we get to a place of sanity? And the only way that I know how to do that is through nervous system regulation. That's actually how we solve crime. That's how we solve all of these major health issues from a public policy standpoint, is nervous system regulation, because we could actually reverse illness, reverse chronic conditions, reduce healthcare costs, reduce healthcare premiums. If there was obviously a combined effort, right? Like, we can't just do it in silo. You can't just do it on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever. But if we had an actual government behind us and said, hey, our health and senior services, if he wasn't so concerned about whatever nonsense he's talking about today, let's actually do something about what's actually happening. Because he's obviously crazy, but like there is some good in there. Like, you just have to parse it out, right?
You might not get me to say that. Right?
Well, I'm not saying there's good. I'm not saying I'm a fan of him. I'm just saying
I understand.
That there are parts, right? Eat whole foods. That's good for you. Extra
sure, that yes. I mean, he doesn't do that, but yes, I mean, I think that
he's not the tanning all the time.
McDonald's all the time, but no, I mean, I think, but the truth of the matter is that
I'm an RFK Jr., by the way, not Trump.
Oh yeah, I don't like him either. But anyways, but yes, but like, you know, the challenge that we face now is that we have very complex issues that we are trying to deal with, and we basically are in a society now where people are getting their information in 30, 60, or 90-second bites. I
Yeah.
don't know how to tell you why or how important having universal health care would be, not only for the health of the people in this country, but also as possibly the largest economic stimulus package that this country has ever seen. If you all of a sudden tell people they don't need to stay in their shitty jobs to have health care and they can go start their own thing, their dream project or whatever. We don't talk like that. So we have to find a way to explain this in a way that's not just like healthcare is a human right, or we need to end corruption. It's like, well, what are you going to do? What does that mean?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like what does that mean? And so
Would
we
be
have, and
aspirational.
that's why we had a whole conversation on today's show about today's show, not the Today Show, but like the today's show about how a universal health, how a universal healthcare plan would work, and how it would be actually a tax cut for businesses because they are currently paying 72% of the healthcare costs in this country. They would go to zero. And you know, there's a whole host of things, but like it
Yeah.
requires a deeper conversation. You can't just say it in 30 seconds. And so that is a challenge when you're trying to do something that requires explanation. The other side is saying like there are death panels or they're going to kill you or like all these things.
Yeah.
It's hard to fight that. And so I think that is part of the challenge in this information ecosystem that we have right now, that we have struggled, I think, to tell people, you know, the benefits of a lot of these things that are really complex, and frankly people don't have a lot of time in their day to spend to figure it out.
And they're not educated enough to even know any better, right? Because we haven't educated our citizens on realities, right? So there's a lot of downstream effects, and I agree with you. I mean, I've also heard the counter argument to that is like there won't be innovation, but guess what? There's still privatized like healthcare stuff. Like I go, all my stuff is at a network. So like if I, you know, like most of it is at a network.
I would argue that there will be more innovation, because what
I
will
agree.
happen is that people will not stay in jobs that they're staying in solely so that their family can have health insurance. And if they don't need to do that anymore and they can go do the thing that they want to do because they've got the support of knowing like they don't have to worry about the health care, those are small businesses that are created. Most jobs in this country are created by small businesses. I was lucky. My wife has great health insurance. So before this job, I had a digital marketing agency for a brief period of time. I hired like 5 people. But
Yeah.
I would never have done that if my wife didn't have health insurance. I would have had to go get a regular job, and
100%.
then I wouldn't be sitting here because I wouldn't be doing this job where
That's
we have 12
exactly,
people.
but that's exactly how I ended up in this, because my ex-husband couldn't provide health insurance, and I could have done this 10 years ago or
Yep,
whatever, and I would have been more successful when people wanted to support me.
right.
And then when I was thrown into it, now the state of New Jersey got rid of my health insurance. I don't know what to do. Like, it's really bad. And I agree with you. Like, there's a lot of trickle down effects. The only argument I have to say to that is, you know, if we say everybody could be an entrepreneur, then who are we selling to? Because where are we going to make money, right? Like, we still need some people to have money, because that's kind of
Well, for
what's going
sure.
on.
I mean, I don't think it would end large businesses for sure. And I think some people just they do not have that entrepreneurial spirit, which is
Right.
also perfectly fine. But
Yeah,
that also opens up other positions in those jobs because the people left to go do the other thing, they backfill. So like it
exactly.
has a whole effect. So it's not just about
And they can still get rid of all the people that they don't want to have in the company to begin with. And by
right.
the way, the healthcare, the premiums, the Obamacare, the reason 72%, that's why we're in this situation, because all those small businesses that got saved in 2008, Main Street, right? Like that was the biggest deal. I was at the Times, like this is literally what was going on.
Yep.
And all of those, Main Street was supporting our economy. Those same businesses didn't want to vote in somebody who was going to increase the health insurance cost again, right? That's where the pendulum swung. So it's like it's been a nightmare to live in this country, honestly. So I'm
And
happy that you're doing something to help people.
well,
For
thank
real.
you. Yeah, and it's good to do something that I think has a positive effect on society. At least we are trying to do.
Yeah.
And like I said, like we get messages from people in these rarely read spots, and they are, you know, they feel alone, and we give them a sense of community. And you know, I think that eventually over time that starts to spread to more and more people, and especially now that so many people are disillusioned with what this administration has done. I mean, they're polling in the mid to lower 30s, which is some of the worst polling for a president in history.
Since polling,
um,
actually, in
what's that?
1950. Since polling in
Yeah,
19,
yeah, it's really,
yeah,
really bad. So
actually the
this
lowest.
is a unique opportunity to grab some more people and explain to them and show them, look, there is a space for you over here. We are not these like, I don't know, like living in a tree, lefty hippie people. Like,
I know.
I am running a business. You are running a business. Like, and I truly believe that the policies of the left are better for business than the policies of the right. And we have seen it over and over again, except in this country, we sort of figure out lower taxes means more success, which is not, unless you are uber wealthy. Like, again, why does Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos need a tax cut when those guys are going to both, before they die, be trillionaires?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very obvious, but I don't think we've gone on offense to really push that. It's like, you know, because like Jeff Bezos has a $250 million yacht. He doesn't need a tax cut.
No.
And he went on TV the other day and said, taxing me more will not solve your problems. That's half right. It will not solve all of the problems, but it will solve some.
Yeah. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere, and we need to solve these problems. So I'm really grateful that you started this platform. I'm so happy that you're on the show and you had the opportunity to tell everyone what you're doing. Where can everyone find you? How can they get involved? And share a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So for me, it's very easy. It's just my name, @Tim_Fullerton, at pretty much every platform. I mostly am using Threads, LinkedIn. I do use YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And then for Find Out Media, you can either go to wearefindout.com, or, you know, you could search us for Find Out Media on social platforms and you can join us there.
I'm so excited to get more involved, and I can't wait I want to see the episode that you just had today. So maybe you can have a link to that in this clip as well, if you don't mind, when you have a moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you again for everything. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I hope you all will join us next week. Is our last week. Jesse and I will be having a show together, and then we're going to be moving everything over to the On Me IRL pod on YouTube. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us, and hope you learned something new today. To all of the jewelry that I have behind me, I'm always wearing the Camuso Shift necklace. And the reason why is that it actually is an anxiety antidote. It helps you shift into calm in real time. And it's all about the exhale. So what I like to do is do a 4-4-8 breath. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, and 8 seconds on the exhale. And the exhale is where the magic happens. It actually helps reduce your heart rate. It reduces blood pressure in real time, and it helps you breathe into calm. So let's do it together. Inhale for 4. It just feels so good. This is truly my favorite. From the beach to the boardroom, you could wear it everywhere.